All right, Ambush, and today we are joined by a maverick who happens to be the head behind a fully integrated music company. Not only do they do management, not only do they happen to do a little bit of the publishing and licensing world, even handling a little bit of the record label side of things. They are mixing it all together with a diverse roster, bringing it your way in a company called Popguru Sound and Vision. Of course, the person behind this vision is my guest today, Mr. Graham Stairs. How's it going today, Graham?
Great. Glad to be here.
Oh, hey, I am absolutely honored to have you here today. And of course, Popguru has some exciting things on the go as the world continues to open up. You guys have a album coming out featuring some of your artists entitled Coverama that we're going to be discussing here today. So I'd love to know, when did this idea begin to take form here?
Well, it's kind of interesting. Last year, well, first of all, as you mentioned, we do a lot of sync for film, television, and commercials. And last year, I was talking to this UK music supervisor that I deal with. And she was working on the trailer for the third season of Sex Education for Netflix. And I don't know whether she was joking or not, but she said, like if somebody was interested in doing a cover of Save It for Later by the English Beat, that would be something that I think the producers would be interested. So it just usually when they say things like that, they say, by the same time as they're saying, we'd like you to do that, they also say, well, hey, you've got 5 minutes to do it in, In this case, we actually had a couple of days, and I talked to Mark and Martha from Martha and the Muffins and said, hey, would you guys be interested in doing this? And they actually did. And so I pitched it to the music supervisor. She absolutely loved it. Unfortunately, the producers didn't use it, but Mark and Martha and I were sort of talking afterwards and said, this is too good a version just to sit there on the shelf. We need to do something with it. And so Mark said, well, why don't you get some of your other artists to do the same thing and put out an EP? And I said, okay. And then the idea kind of snowballed from there. So one song for a trailer turned into an idea for an EP, which actually ended up being an album because basically everybody I asked to do it said yes. So
oh, wow. That's amazing how one door that maybe was open ends up getting closed, ends up opening this much bigger door for a whole bunch of other artists, right?
Yeah, well, I'm a great believer in happy accidents. Like something like that happens and you go, okay, well, this didn't happen, but what else can we do with this? And that's kind of like, that's probably like the story of Popguru right there, like a series of happy accidents.
Hey, it's happy accidents can create some good things for sure. And for some of the sounds that we have already heard off of this upcoming album, Coverama, which drops on May 20th, quite a few singles out already, and they're all sounding fantastic. As I mentioned, quite a diverse roster here on Popguru. So did all of these artists sort of get to choose their own covers, or how did that work out?
Yeah, I mean, pretty well. Everybody chose their own songs. There were a couple of occasions where I said, what do you think of this song? Have you, like a good example of that is Sam Casey's version of I'd Rather Go Blind. I had them, periodically, late night, you're going down a rabbit hole in YouTube, and I came across a version of the song that I've always loved by Christine Perfect, who later became Christine McVie, who was in Fleetwood Mac, and she had done an early solo version of that song, and I really loved it. So I played it for Sam. I said, "What do you think of this song?" And she says, "I've always loved that song. I used to perform it at clubs around Toronto, and we had been working with this UK producer, Joe Thompson. So I asked him if he'd be interested in producing a version for Sam, and he said, "Oh, that's one of my favorite all-time songs. So it just happened to roll out that way. And with Juliana, I knew she was a big Blondie fan, and I said, "Would you be interested in doing a song for this?" And she said, "What about Dreaming by Blondie?" And I said, "Absolutely." So in most cases, I would say everybody sort of chose their own. Occasionally, there may have been a nudge or two from me, but for the most part, everybody chose the songs themselves. And in fact, Mark and Martha ended up doing 2 songs on the album. They did Save It for Later, and then they also did the old Buffalo Springfield song, For What It's Worth, which the lyrics were written in the 60s and are still relevant as a protest song today.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy how music, some people like to say that some things are cyclical, and you see some parts of styles of music come back, but it's always somehow the topics of the music somehow stay relevant as well.
Yeah, well, I think you're right about the whole cyclical thing. I think that it really came home to me when I remember when the whole Miami, what's that? Not Miami Vice, but CSI Miami came out, and they used a Who song as the title track, as the theme song. And in fact, all 3 franchises used a Who song for the theme song. And I can remember my youngest daughter at the time going, "Wow, I really love the Who," because she was just discovering them because of that television series. And to her, they were a brand new band, even though they were from the 60s. Because she'd go online, she'd see pictures of them, and she'd see a young Keith Moon or a young Roger Daltrey, and she'd go, "Wow, look at these guys," And I'm going, "Well, actually, they don't look like that anymore." But yeah, I mean, there's so much. I mean, because of the internet and everything else, and YouTube, everybody has access to everything. And so I think today it's not so much that it's hard to come up with something original, but I think most artists today, if they're really good, they're bringing in influences from all over the place, and they're putting them together in an interesting way. And I think that's especially true, I think, of artists from Toronto, because we're such a multicultural city here that everybody's picking up on things from all over the place and putting it together in an interesting way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's definitely a cultural melting pot, as many would say. And speaking about Toronto and speaking about Coverama, of course, we mentioned that the album comes out May 20th, but you guys on the 21st have a show going on down at the Drake Underground featuring 6 of the artists who happen to be a part of this Coverama album. So can you take us a little bit behind of what that show might entail for some people who may be interested in checking it out?
Well, I think first of all, wow, a live show, it's 2.5 years. The first show we've done 2.5 years. So that's exciting just in and of itself, and the fact that we're celebrating the release of the album, I think it, just adds to that. But I think what people can expect is, it's almost like a sampler of not only the album, because each act will be performing their song from the album, but they'll also be doing a couple of their own songs as well. So, one of the good things about the album is it stands alone on its own. I mean, as far as a creative work, but also because it's kind of like our first major release of the year, it's also introducing some of the artists like Alex Exists or Sam Casey, who will have their own EPs coming out later in the year. So if people come to the show, they're going to see brand new songs from Sam Casey from her EP that will be coming out later in the year. They'll hear brand new songs from Alex Exists, John Orpheus, Ghost Caravan. Everybody will be performing new songs as well as their version on the album. So it's going to be a great way for people who aren't familiar with Popguru or my label imprint, The Confidence Emperors, to sort of dive in and see what's going to be happening, later on this year. And also next year, 2023 is the 25th anniversary of Popguru. So we have a lot of really special releases planned for that. So this year and next year is going to be a very exciting time for not only for Popguru and the Confidence Emperors, but also for the artists.
Absolutely. It's definitely sounds like there's a lot going on, a lot to balance. And with all of these diverse artists, I mean, and I also just want to say that sounds like an incredible show because, like we say, 6 diverse artists. It's something for everybody. You're getting new music from all of these artists. It's what are you missing out on, right?
Well, exactly. Well, I grew up in an era where everything was played in radio. Wasn't compartmentalized like it is today. So I've always loved an eclectic range of music. So, I just go by, is it good or is it not good? Because I remember when I first started working with Grand Analog, well, they were performing at an Ontario showcase at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm going, oh God, just what I need, like a hip hop act at 10 o'clock in the morning. But when they performed, I went, oh my God, these guys are so great. I have to get involved. I don't know anything about this genre, but I have to get involved. And like here we are 14 years later, and Dario is one of my good friends, and he's now a solo artist, and he also hosts his own national radio show on the CBC every night. But Grand Analog, they are the definitive band as far as I'm concerned, in the sense that very original. They combine a lot of different interesting elements, but also they keep surprising you, or they kept surprising, just the way Dario did with his new EP. And to me, that's my favorite kind of artist. Somebody who surprises me every time they present a new song or a new album or a new EP.
Absolutely. It's as human beings, we constantly grow, and the music that we create should reflect that, right?
Well, it should, but there are a lot of artists who have a formula, and they just keep repeating that formula over and over again. And for a lot of those artists, it's very successful. So why would they change? But that's never been the kind of artist that I've been attracted to. I'm always interested in the artist that is prepared to keep pushing the envelope as far as what they're doing musically, or lyrically or artistically. And I'm lucky to work with a lot of artists who are exactly like that.
Absolutely, for sure. And of course, earlier there, I was gonna jump into a question about balance and almost lost track there. So we're gonna circle back to that. You mentioned that quite a few of these artists are working on new EPs, new releases, have things coming later this year. And as a management group, as a label, I'm sure you guys are probably wanting to hit the ground running going into that 25th anniversary, but also with the world opening up. So how exactly does Popguru, how do you yourself balance all of these creative artists, making sure all of them get their time in the sun?
Well, I think that I've always been good at sort of managing things. But yeah, I think it's just a question of working out a timeline that works for everybody, and so that, as you say, everybody gets an opportunity to have the light shined on them. And we're busy, but I'm not the kind of person just to sign an artist to throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. We're in it for the long haul, and I think that we have, as I said, we have brand new artists like Sam Casey or Alex Exist, but a lot of the artists like Martha the Muffins, Dario, Grand Analog, Will from the Wilderness of Manitoba. I've worked with those people for 10 plus years, so they wouldn't stay with me if they were just sort of a flavor of the month kind of thing. They know that I'm going to work hard on their behalf and make sure their voices get heard. And so, yeah, I mean, that's part of the planning is just making sure everybody gets their allotted, hour in the sun, so to speak. And yeah, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, sometimes you're going, oh my God, did I do this or did I do that? But, for the most part, I mean, if you sort of, plot things out, you can make sure that things get their time.
Mm-hmm. It definitely sounds like a rising tides raise all ships sort of situation there, plan there with Popguru.
Well, I've always liked to think that we're a community. And so, everybody like Mark and Martha from Martha and the Muffins, I mean, they've been very good at mentoring some of the younger artists and writing with them and sharing their knowledge with them. And, everybody, some people like Adario was a guest on a Ghost Caravan track, or somebody else plays on somebody else's track, or Daryl's a solo artist now, but when you see him live, I would say 4/5 of his band is Grand Analog members. So, everybody is helpful. And, I don't know whether I'm going to get it, but we've been doing these series of Popguru reviews where we go into Revolution recording and we film record a half-hour live stream concert. And we did one in the fall. We're doing one right now. And I've applied for one in the fall, which, as I said, I don't know whether we'll get it or not. But if we do get it, it's based on collaboration. So it's really almost like the definitive concert series in the sense that I'm pairing up two different artists over 5 or 6 pairs, and their only mandate is to get together, come up with something, and then we'll film it and present it. So there are a lot of different interesting combinations. Like one of them was John Orpheus working with Mark and Martha from Martha and the Muffin, because they have a side project called Chemical Dreams. And again, this is another one where I put them together to write a song for a car commercial, and they ended up writing another song that was so good that I said, okay, we can't give this to the car commercial. We've got to keep this. So we ended up releasing this single and video called Look to the Moon, which was Chemical Dreams featuring John Orpheus. And that was a perfect example of, a dream collaboration for me, because neither one of those artists would have written this song on their own. The only way this song would have existed is if those 3 people were in the same room. So I'm hoping we get this grant from the Canada Council of the Arts, because if we do, then we can do a lot more of that kind of collaboration where we put people in a room and who knows what's going to come out.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. If anybody from the, Canada Council from the Arts just happens to be listening, nudge, nudge, nudge. Yeah, I've checked out a couple of these concerts, and if anybody hasn't checked out the Popguru YouTube either, they definitely should, because I know that there was one of those videos that was featuring Alex Exists. I think he was paired with Tandem possibly, but either way is coming out with just incredible sounds, like a 20-minute set and just like 6 tracks. It is an incredible show. The production value is, my goodness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's kind of like my credo, if you will. I mean, in the sense that I believe in quality. I think I'm just actually reading a book right now, a biography of Malcolm McLaren, who, he discovered or developed the Sex Pistols and then later went on to do his own album, stuff like that. But, he was very good at sort of drawing things out of people and putting things together. So that kind of, as I said, the kind of mandate is what we do here as well, I hope.
Absolutely. Continuing to grow, like you said, some new artists, and continuing to put artists like Martha and the Muffins, continuing to keep them out there. mixing them up with new artists so that they can combine, collaborate, and together continue to make amazing music.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like as I said, it's really important to do quality. And I think if you do quality work, people recognize it. Not everybody in this kind of prefab era, takes time to do that. But like I was just commenting, somebody was asking me about one of last week's show, which was Wilderness in Manitoba playing unplugged with strings. And I said, well, we had a long discussion about which song form. I had known Rachel and Michelle, the two string players, for quite some time because they'd also played with Grand Analog. And, I have a long time relationship with Revolution and partners there. And I chose the backdrop. So there was a lot of thought put into that performance. And even though it was only, a 25-minute performance, there was a lot of work and thought and effort put into that to make sure that what people were seeing and hearing was, what I think is great, and that's what we don't always hit that mark, but we're always trying to hit that mark.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have one last question that I really want to ask of you here before I let you go, Graham. Is that all right with you?
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. So, of course, after so many years of working in A&R, helping so many different artists, at this point of the game, to continue to work with artists like Alex Exists, Tandem, Sam Casey, artists who are just getting their foot into the game, getting their feet wet, really starting to build their own careers. What is it like to continue to assist those artists, and like, how fulfilling is that for you as an individual?
Well, it's my favorite thing to do. I mean, it's something that I've done right from the beginning. And, I was originally a musician myself. We signed a band I was in, signed a recording contract with Capitol Records. And then the head of Capitol Records then became EMI Music Canada. When the band broke up, he recommended that I go into A&R, which I did. And it's something that I've always enjoyed doing. It's something, as I said, is my favorite thing to do, to discover a band or discover an artist, develop them. And if at the end of all this, if my legacy is, I was a patron of the arts, then I'm fine with that. I can live with that, and it's exciting when you take an artist like Grand Analog or Wilderness in Manitoba, and like nobody knows who they are. They're absolutely brand new. Nobody knows who they are. And then I remember a few years later with Wilderness in Manitoba, we're playing the End of the Road Festival in the UK. And that was an interesting story because this intern at the festival was listening to their first EP while he was working at his desk. The woman who booked the festival walked by, said, "Who is that?" And she basically phoned me and booked us on the spot. And so here is this band that I took from literally nothing, zero. And, a year later, they're performing at this one of the most prestigious English festivals around. And she did us a favor. She put us on this stage called, which had a capacity, I think, of 750 people. And she put us on the, in the program, featured. So she did everything she could to make sure that people were going to pay attention. And that's one thing I find about the English. They really listen. And so you have 750 people in this tent. And when the band finished playing, they got a standing ovation, and I went, wow, here's a band that, a year ago was playing in an art gallery in Toronto to 5 people. And here we are, and they're getting a standing ovation in the UK. And yeah, that I have to say is a real rush. It's a real, it's why you do these or Grand Analog is you take them and they're playing this pre-Grammy event in Los Angeles, and they're playing outside in the parking lot, and there's all these, people there that have won Grammys, and everybody's listening to Grand Analog, and again, positive reaction. And that's one thing. I mean, obviously, the last 2 years have put a bit of a dent in that. But I always, when I sign a band, I want to be confident that I can put them on a stage anywhere in the world and they'll get across. And that's really stood me in good stead over the years, because, one of the ways that we've managed to sort of internationalize Popguru and the artist is by going to international conferences like South by Southwest or Reeperbahn Festival in Germany or Great Escape in England, and just, putting them on stages and seeing people connect with them.
Wow. My goodness. I thank you so very much for sharing your ethos, the ethos behind Popguru, and also sharing this upcoming album, Coverama, this upcoming show, May 21st, the Drake Underground. If you're in Toronto, get your tickets. This promises to be an incredible show. Graham, thank you so very much for joining us here today on the Desert Tiger Podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.